A new admissions cycle at Johns Hopkins University brings with it a new supplemental essay prompt and new expectations related to the SAT and ACT. That is the topic of today's video. My name is Craig Meister. I'm a college admissions coach. You can learn more about me and how you can work with me one-on-one throughout the entire college admissions process on my website, which is collegemeister.com. And if you're interested in learning about whether or not you are or your student is on track for selective college admission in the United States of America, visit areyouontracktogetin.com. Again, that's areyouontracktogetin.com, at which you will complete a free 3-minute assessment. Your results will be emailed to you right away, and they will help you clarify whether or not you are or your student is on track for selective college admission in the United States of America. Let's start with the new supplemental essay prompt. Last year's prompt was fully discussed in another video that I have linked below this one if you're just interested in the history of things. But this year's prompt for the 24-25 admission cycle reads as follows. How has your life experience contributed to your personal story, your character, values, perspectives, or skills, and what you want to pursue at Hopkins? Now, I do Hopkins, I think, every year, and it's getting sort of funny at this point. The wording is so unnecessarily unclear for a university of Hopkins caliber. Now, one thing I will say, last year they actually injected into the prompt itself mention of, race, gender, sexuality, religion, community. That has been cut this year. Last year's prompt was tell us about an aspect of your identity, e.g. race, gender, sexuality, religion, community, etc., or a life experience that has shaped you as an individual and how that influenced what you like to pursue in college at Hopkins. And then they put into parentheses last year, this can be a future goal or experience that is either academic, extracurricular, or social. Last year you had 350 words. This year you have 350 words. This is like, why can't they just ask a direct question that doesn't have like these sidebars? I don't know. Maybe this is why we'll talk in a minute about their testing expectations evolving at Hopkins. Maybe the actual people asking the question should have had different testing expectations at different points in their life stories on them. But whatever the case may be, how has your life experience contributed to your personal story and what you want to pursue at Hopkins? That is how I would read it. Just forget that whole sidebar, your character, values, perspective, or skills. Like, come on, the people applying to Hopkins should be able to surmise that. I don't know why they had to include that. But whatever the case is, you want to treat this like a small essay, an introductory paragraph with a thesis, a body paragraph or two to support and prove the thesis. Maybe 3 paragraphs if you're a short paragraph writer. And then a concluding paragraph that goes a step beyond the thesis, says something new, just doesn't regurgitate the thesis, but actually says something new and thoughtful that you're just bringing up at the end, but that makes them like you that much more, makes them feel like you're that much more of a philosophical or reflective individual, but of course relates and builds upon whatever you shared in the intro and or throughout the body, right? Johns Hopkins, as all of these institutions now, really want diverse students. So keep that in mind when you think about your life experience. Don't just mention something that a lot of other kids could mention, like not making the sports team for 2 straight years and then finally making the sports team. This would be an opportunity to talk specifically, of course, about something that has inspired you or motivated you to pursue Hopkins for the next 4 years. And it could be related, of course, to your academic focus at Hopkins, if you have a focus and you want Hopkins for a very particular academic reason. But it could also be what you see in the community that is Hopkins, and that's something that's happened to you in your life that makes you feel like Hopkins is the community for you, and you are a student uniquely positioned to contribute to the Hopkins community. So this need not be academic in focus. Again, just to reread it, how has your life experience contributed to your personal story, your character, values, perspectives, or skills, and what you want to pursue at Hopkins? So they just want to get to know you better. At the end of the day, they just want to get to know you better and in a structured format that will help them clarify that you know what you're getting into if you apply to Hopkins and go to Hopkins. And you have hopefully eyes for opportunities that exist uniquely at Hopkins based off of the life experiences you choose to put the spotlight on in this essay. And you can't talk about all your life experiences. Please do not go broad and shallow. You should go deep and narrow with one, maybe two max, but really you have space for one, in my opinion, life experience that has been particularly formative, particularly insofar as it impacts your self-concept and has influenced you to cross paths at this point in your life with Hopkins. If you could write this essay to Penn, if you could write this essay to Carnegie Mellon, if you could write this essay to Wash U, if you could write this essay to Vanderbilt, you have not, I think, done the job you should be doing. So keep in mind, while this essay is primarily first and foremost about you showing a life experience and where you're coming from in your personal story, it does need to, at some point in the body, dovetail into, maybe sooner rather than later, in fact, connecting some formative experience with the summative of you arriving and getting into Hopkins, right? Like, and you taking advantage of things that are unique to Hopkins. So do keep that in mind. This is a hybrid essay insofar as it's not just about you, and it's definitely not just about Hopkins. It is about the marriage between the person you are up till this point and the person you see yourself evolving into uniquely as a result of you going to Hopkins, as opposed to if you go to NYU or Penn or Columbia or wherever. So just keep that in mind. Obviously, you're not going to be mentioning any other school names, but you want to make sure that this is bespoke enough to Hopkins where they really feel like you've given this thought and you have reflected on your own life experiences, but you've also reflected on what you want to pursue at Hopkins. And again, this can be inside or outside the classroom. It does not need to be specific to a major, though obviously if you're drawn most to Hopkins because of a major or the curricular opportunity that's associated with that major or those majors, by all means, you can dovetail into that. But if it's something about the community or something about Baltimore, or it's something specifically about the culture of Hopkins, then that really resonates you, then that's where your ultimate destination leads you, right at the end, by the end. Now, the other big change for the 24-25 admission cycle is that Hopkins is encouraging students now to submit SAT or ACT scores. So keep this in mind. This is important. You'll see it right on the Common App itself. Johns Hopkins University is test optional for the 24-25 admission cycle or application year. Students enrolling for fall 2025, but encourages students with access to testing to submit available SAT or ACT scores. As part of our holistic review process, submitted scores will be taken into consideration within the context of your broader application. What that basically means is that if you go to a very under-resourced school in the Mississippi Delta and no AP courses are offered, they're not going to be as judgmental about your SAT or ACT score as if you go to Horace Mann in New York City. So you keep this in mind. Still try to get the best score you can get. Don't let life experiences be an excuse for you, my friend. You want to try to get the best SAT or ACT scores you can, even if you live in a very under-resourced school in the United States or abroad. Don't let anything be an excuse. Try to do your very best because, trust me, if you can, especially if you're coming from an under-resourced environment, and you have been able to cobble together a 1490 or even 1450 on the SAT, that is going to impress Johns Hopkins, as long as, of course, you can speak in English and write in English in the essays and also have strong grades in whatever school you found yourself in. But yeah, they're looking at you holistically. And basically, again, I've done previous videos on this, but Johns Hopkins just laid it out. Their definition of holistic now basically means equitable. Okay, they're going to consider you equitably in the context of everything else they're looking at here. All right, so you can also self-report, and you can also officially send your scores. Obviously, it costs more to send your scores, but as long as you self-report, you just make sure you're not lying. Make sure they're going to catch you eventually, so definitely be honest if you self-report in the Common App, as opposed to sending your official scores to Johns Hopkins for the 25-26 admission cycle. It has just been announced that Johns Hopkins is going back to being a test-required institution. And that is important because now that Johns Hopkins has gotten out of the way that they now officially define holistic as they're going to judge different applicants based off their community differently, they now have carte blanche to go back to being test required full-time for the students wanting to enter in fall 2026. But it's encouraged for the students applying in fall 2025 to submit scores. It will be required for the students applying for fall 2026. That means those students applying starting in August or later of 2025. If you really want to get into Hopkins, more power to you. But again, as I often quip, it's Baltimore. So make sure that you have a bulletproof vest. I can say that. I'm from Baltimore, so I'm allowed to say that. We have a very sardonic sense of humor here. And we poke fun at ourselves for the fact that the powers that be have allowed things to devolve to the point where Johns Hopkins, of course, is now developing its own police force. That's another topic for another day. But if you really want to get into Johns Hopkins, you want my pre-read, which is a new product I'm offering. When you have finished your Common App to Hopkins and you want to know if it's as strong as possible and whether or not in its current condition, your chances of admission are impressive, inconclusive, or inadequate, you want my pre-read. Getting my pre-read now means having me review your entire application, just like an admissions officer or an admissions committee at Hopkins. We'll review it later, and receiving by email a comprehensive report highlighting what's working and what's not on your full Common App and your Johns Hopkins Common App supplement. If you've yet to submit your Common App to Johns Hopkins, my pre-read may motivate you to make adjustments to it before your deadline. If you've already submitted your Common App to Johns Hopkins, my pre-read will prepare you for what I deem to be your likely admissions outcome at Johns Hopkins University in Baltimore. Good morning, Baltimore. By the way, if you are interested in my pre-read and you want to purchase it, go to mypreread.com. If you enjoyed today's video, please give it a thumbs up and consider subscribing to my channel. If you want to work with me throughout the entire college admissions process, go to my website, which is collegemeister.com. Until next time, stay safe, stay well, and most importantly, stay stress-free throughout the entire college admissions process.